You're now tuned into the Fully Booked podcast with Mace, French, and Pox. Enjoy the listen.
Where to go? Tell me where to go. Give us my inner voice. Tell me where to go. Tell me where to go.
So going back to the 5 different types of categories that Dr. Bethany Marshall say the most difficult men to fall in. I think we have touched upon a couple. So we briefly talked about the scriptwriter whilst Hayley was still with us, and I think we brought up the Invisible Man. But running back into chronological order, chapter 5, the man in charge. So just to give the listeners out there a brief summary of what the man in charge is, what he entails. The man in charge is intolerant toward people and situations he cannot control. French, would you describe yourself as a man in charge?
At times, yeah. I can be. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why and how?
Because I like to, as you said, I guess, control the situation and be in control of the situation.
Why do you think you have that in you? What makes you feel like that? Why don't you want to just let loose and not be in control?
I've just always kind of, I'm not to say been rigid in my growing up, but I was always kind of in a disciplined environment. So
and does that follow through?
That kind
so,
of...
you know, sorry, some people, they might be, a lot of people speak about them being in that disciplined environment at home, but as soon as they left the house, it's almost a sense of freedom or breaking free. Did you not have that?
No, because I was given enough freedom to go and do what I was doing anyway. So I was never one of those get locked up and as soon as you, as you said, come out, you're going crazy. Mm-hmm. Like I was always given a boundary to go past, and if I respected that boundary, I was then allowed to push that boundary further. Not to say literally push it, but I was given more leeway. So I was doing a lot of things like from early. Do you know what I mean? So it was never a case of, it's time for me to go nuts and go crazy. So yeah, I guess being raised in a disciplined environment, I'm always going to want to have that being in charge, making sure I know everything that's going on.
And does that being in charge follow through to the relationships you've been in? Being in control? Yeah,
to be honest with you, I am. Yeah, I do get this statement a lot. It's either your way or nothing, kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah, like it's one rule for you and another rule for me, kind of thing. And I try to not enforce that, because obviously as you grow, you get feedback and you try to listen to the feedback you have. So I don't try and say it's one thing for me and another for you. But being in the house, it was almost like, okay, you can say your piece, but this is what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So you can express your opinion, but the decision's already been made, so to speak. And that's how I was raised, I guess. Cool. So it does affect how I am in relationships.
So what Dr. Bethany Marshall says in that chapter, and actually throughout the book, is that if the person you're with is that man in charge, what I should have mentioned is that with all these different types of characters, for lack of a better word, that she describes, or types of men in relationships that she describes, if they're willing to change, it's no longer classed as a deal breaker, or the relationship can be worked out. If they're not willing to change, what Dr. Bethany Marshall is saying is that these women should be categorizing these things as deal breakers. So the man in charge, if he's not willing to accommodate the thoughts and the fact that the person he's in a relationship with is not the person he's in a relationship with is not happy and wants him to change, but he's not willing to embrace that, that should be a deal breaker to that female. Pox, what's your experience of being in charge?
There's definitely there's no stories of Andrew being in charge. Now what I was gonna say is
You're like the dominant force now.
Nah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say I'm the dominant force. So that's never ever been the case. Actually, it's never been. No, I don't want to say it's never been the case, but
I'm tepid.
No, I don't think I'm tepid. It tends to be a bit more balanced, if I'm honest. But I think as you're talking about home life and all that type of stuff. And I was thinking about my parents, and the first thing that came to mind is actually was my dad the type of person, was the man that was in charge. And to an extent, yes, he probably was that type of person. But then I look back and I thought to myself, although there was love in the household, there was definitely personality clashes in regards to my mother wouldn't allow like there to be a man, dare I say, an authoritarian, dare I say. And I think that's probably led to maybe some of the personality traits that I kind of carry. So, I mean, obviously, says the man in charge, there is always a power struggle and rarely a dialogue. I don't think I'm that type of person where there needs to be a power struggle. I'd always like to have a conversation in regards to if there's a disagreement in any way, shape, or form. Do you do simple negotiations? No, do simple negotiations turn into power struggles? Obviously, just covered that. But an example was you tell him, "I'm going to a friend's house." He says, "You should have told me earlier." These are things that like, I'm not.
This from the book.
Yeah, these are things I'm definitely not getting into dispute over. As I mentioned before, I'm very, very simple. If you want to go chill with your friends, by all means, go chill with your friends. Unless there was something like really, really important to me that I wanted to do at the time. That we've discussed before, and then you said you're going to your friends, then that might be something which but like other than that, like it's minor. I haven't got really a problem with that. And there's other things in there. I was a bit surprised that men would stoop to this type of level. I was a bit surprised men do this in general, but men who check women's emails.
Oh, I was gonna get that's
men. So did you want to touch on the point?
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Men who insist on being in the know as to important aspects of your life or their life. Again, like. Obviously, I want to know more, but I'm not going to insist on you. In time, hopefully, you'll tell me these things. If you want to be with me, then hopefully in time you'll tell me these stuff.
That's the thing. See what you're saying about men who check women's emails and so on, and you want to go to a friend, you should have told me earlier. You can't, and hinting that you can't go. There's a difference between a man in charge and a psychopath.
I said these type of guys need to be binned. Yeah. They need to be binned.
But this is a lot of the book, though. I think it's a lot of these archetypes are extremes, or because as I said, I don't know many.
I'm so
guys
glad you said that
are in this book. Like from a circle that I know, that's around me, that's close to me. I don't really know anyone. Kind of going back to a few of the points, stories. I think in Chantel's story.
Is that in that same chapter?
Same chapter. Yeah. It's the same chapter.
Just can you remember what Chantel's story is about?
Well, when Chantel met Owen, her life was in disarray. She had just graduated from college, was living in a small apartment, had not yet found a job, and was struggling to pay her bills like a hero. Owen swooped in and rescued her. Now, the point that I've highlighted is that Owen struggled with the fear that Chantel was irresponsible. This was never articulated overtly, but when Chantel pressed snooze on her alarm, Owen anxiously awakened her so that she would not be late. When Chantel went shopping, Owen asked for her receipts so that he could log them into a spreadsheet upon which he traced all of her expenditures. Now, I'm not going to lie, my first thought was, he sounds like a disciplined person.
You know what I'm thinking? Unless he's doing her taxes, he doesn't need them receipts.
No, but... Go on. He sounds like a disciplined person. If he wants you to both succeed and prosper together, you're going to pull each other up and being stringent, and that's where you'll both get there with the help.
Could Owen be a substitute for French?
You know what?
No, bro. No, that's not. But he sounds like a disciplined guy that wants them to both flourish. I
see why you love the man in charge ain't willing to change, bro. I'm in between the both of you. See how you reacted, P?
Yeah.
And where you were like, go spend your money, whatever you want to do. I'm in between the both of you because if what's her name? Carol. Chantel. If he knows from long time Chantel's bad with finances or she's regularly late, him not making her press snooze or waking her up, that is not a bad thing.
That's my point.
That is not a bad thing. That one example, if it was just him saying get up or not allowed to put swing stones, he's looking out for your best interest. Yeah. And also, we don't know the backdrop. Perhaps she's been bad with finances. She goes out and does mad shopping on credit card. If he's then checking receipts, he actually is looking out for you, and he's trying to. He's trying to make sure you don't go into debt, overdraft. The next minute you can't get a mortgage together.
So I'm thinking of tones. So like the tone I had, obviously, I think not that we read it differently, but we looked at it as, oh Chantel, let me get you receipts, blah. But I'm thinking like, no, Chantel, pass them receipts now. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Or like
random receipts.
Or you better get up. Like, so you got work. You know what I mean?
I didn't view it as that. I saw that as being supportive. Like, I genuinely saw it as being supportive. Like if you're pressing the snooze button, I know that you need to be up, so I'm gonna be like, okay, cool, babe, you need to get up. Like it's that time, we need to rock and roll. Like it's not I'm chastising you, get up, like get out of the house. You know what I mean? It's let's rock and roll. Like I'm disciplined. I want you to be. Not to say you have to be as disciplined, but those sort of traits, like not hitting the snooze button, it's gonna impact you in the later in the day or whatever it may be, or you can get that opportunity. So I viewed it definitely in a.
If it's from your point of view,
helping.
It's a question of perspective, really.
Yeah,
isn't it?
perspective. Because I looked at it as different, like, yo, Chantel, what's in them bags?
Well, I'm the baby. Way out for me in there.
What's in them bags?
Yeah, I guess. Did you have another point to make?
Yeah, I don't know. Like it might be a little bit in closing, so I don't know if you want to.
I think there was another one, but again, it's just notes that I've picked up. So one of the warning signs is he gets frustrated if you follow the serviceman's advice while purchasing your tyres. You can't believe you didn't call him first, and you mind you that he won't be there to pick up the pieces when rubber starts flying all over the road. That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous.
Some of these examples were not the best.
That's what I mean. That's definitely a warning sign if that's the case. You know what I mean? But again, I don't know any of these kind of people that kind of bug out for some.
Yeah, so I mean, my last point on the man in charge, is my last point, was I think this was a text anyway. The man in charge is so afraid of being dominated, he cannot be spontaneous or be responsive. Tell this man what to do, and he'll feel emasculated or angry. And I think at that point, there's so many examples in the chapter of this type of behaviour. Obviously, we looked at it from two different perspectives. Yeah. Obviously, we just discussed. Mm-hmm. But the question I had was: is it that women see the very best or potential in guys, and then overcompensate with it? As in, okay, so we'll look at the example we had, whereas I feel the guy was being a bit authoritarian, as in, give me the receipts. But at the same time, she's with him and she sees the very best in him. So she may feel I can't think of a personality trait, but there might be something she really likes about him. Mm-hmm. And she will counterbalance that or balance that with... with what we've just said, really, and think, you know what, but he might do this, but he's really good at this and that and the third, and end up kind of staying with him.
Yeah, that happens for sure. Yeah. I do think that happens for sure. Like, just in discussions I have with people around me who might complain about their partner, but then on the flip side, they know that the partner is really good with this, with X or Y. Yeah. So actually, with Z, I can let that slide for the time being. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you're willing to kind of, not to say put up
with.
It's
deal breakers. Yeah, it's what is a deal breaker and what's not. Yeah. It's whether or not that thing it might be annoying or a nuisance, but is it a deal breaker where I want to leave this person and leave this life?
It's crazy because I had a passenger yesterday. It was 3, 4 in the morning. She got in the car and she was like, she didn't want to tell me, but she really wanted to tell me, but she was like, oh, I don't want to agitate you. Just tell me. All right. So she was like, I think close to 40 years of age. I think she was seeing someone approximately roughly the same age. Said the guy who, she said they were both doing very well. Didn't know at the time, but not that I wouldn't have guessed it. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed it actually, but said they're both doing very well. Said her partner is currently in Dubai with, I think, 2 of their kids, but this guy's got a couple of baby mothers, let's say, or anyway, he's got a couple of partners or ex-partners with children with him. And she said one of them, to which he had a child with, is absolutely crazy, to the point where she's followed her to her work and all that type of stuff, to the point it's put her safety at risk. And she said it's like really impacting her life, to the point where she's thinking about breaking up with him, but she's not too sure. But she says she loves him so much that she doesn't, she can't bring herself to kind of break up with him. Which kind of maybe validates the point which I was just talking about.
Sounds like she needs a conversation with Dr. Bethany Marshall.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I think she'll put her straight anyway.
Although I'm sure if everyone listens to Dr. Bethany Marshall, they're probably wouldn't be anyone left in a relationship.
Yeah, literally.
Did you have any more questions on that chapter?
No. The next thing I had was really on Man Without Fault.
Man Without Fault.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
And again, I guess we can leave it to the book review, but whilst we're going through it, some of the points that the doctor makes is very general sweeping statements, such as... Yeah. Perhaps his parents have subjected him to unwanted or overwhelming situations during childhood, such as alcoholism, traumatic events, constant verbal directions, strict rules, and so on. Now, this is what a man in charge is experiencing as a child, apparently. Like all men that have those similar traits, this is their childhood, and it goes on in each chapter, and it kind of defined or does a sweeping statement of if this particular man is this in this certain way, then their upbringing must have been X, Y, Z, which again is so.
It's amazing. Not to, as I said, not to review it as such, but like when I read, so obviously I had two different conflicting opinions when I first started, and kind of as I was finishing, and
I was going to do one of them. Oh yeah.
Two different conflicting opinions, and it made me think. I was in two different state of minds when I read, like when I had my first opinion and when I said my second opinion. So I'd love to know, kind of like where she was maybe in her life.
I get the impression that she'd been hurt a lot from a lot of different guys. Then she started talking to other women that have also been hurt, and it was almost like, okay, now I'm just gonna lay it all down and say there's these kind of men and they've all been through. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like from a personal experience, but not writing it's such a personal experience.
I get the impression she's been hurt a lot. She's actually met a guy she's happy with now, but she walks all over that guy.
Bro, that's what I can see.
That's what I can see.
I can see that scenario.
And he's mad supportive of all this kind of artwork in this book that she's put out. Pox, just so you say, you read it from two different perspectives, because this, I don't know if it was the first or second time you came back beaming to me in French, but I can really see.
I know what women want.
Here we
Pox
go.
came back like Mel Gibson.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I know where she's coming from. No, but guys, you really don't know. I'm the main guy. I can be the relationship counselor.
You need to watch Inception.
No, I didn't.
You'll understand what I'm saying. You'll see
I didn't say that. I didn't say all that. I said no. I'm not saying I didn't say all that. All right, but the tones are very much exaggerated. So what I was going to say, because now clearly I have to explain myself obviously a little bit more, or certainly in a bit more depth, is when I first read it, I wasn't talking to anyone, I wasn't seeing anyone, and the second time I was kind of talking to someone at a time, and maybe my blinkers, but I was going to say my eyes were a bit rose tinted. I think the phrase rose tinted. So I had a different. No, I'm just trying to.
I get it, bro.
Laughing at his expression. So, so I think I had two different. Yeah, so I had two different views.
Yeah.
So what was your? So what was your question? I want to answer it properly.
Was it from me? No, I just said that your perspective. Yeah, it was just the fact that you had a different perspective, and that fact you kind of like all of a sudden saw the book completely.
Nah, I mean, I did. Obviously,
you
I'm kind of
with Bethany Marshall.
It wasn't a case. No, I don't know. No. I don't know where it was in the book specifically, but my thoughts were, and we kind of touched on it a little bit today. To which Hayley kind of agreed with some of your points. I was going to interject, but obviously I wanted things to continue and to flow as well. But I just feel personally. Again, I think men and women, obviously, we look at things obviously different. We look at things differently. I think once we've generally got the girl as such, I'm not saying that we don't feel the need to kind of advance the relationship, but we feel we've accomplished, dare I say, for lack of a better phrase, we've kind of accomplished a goal and we kind of move on to different things. Very similar to in our careers. Once we've accomplished things, we move on. We don't tend to enjoy the process, which I think women, I'm going to say, want to enjoy the process. So it might be a case of, okay, the aim might be being together for a year, whereas a man will probably go through the duration of being with her for a year, but the woman would want to enjoy the process in terms of wanting to get to know the guy obviously a little bit better, and it might be things physically in terms of going out on dates, doing this and doing that in the third. Whereas obviously I know you discuss and using you as an example, you're talking about how you wanted to work on your business and obviously you needed support and so on and so forth. Yeah. Whereas I just feel. I don't know. I just feel I don't want to say that we're almost out of touch, dare I say, in terms of just wanting to open up ourselves maybe to women for them to get to know us a little bit better. They were just my views personally.
Okay. Didn't sound like that the first time.
It sounded exactly like that. No, that's my personal opinion anyway. I mean, in watching Inception, as you mentioned before.
No, but what? Yeah, go.
No, in watching Inception, I was going to go back to travelling, but I didn't want to do that. All right. Yeah, so we're travelling. All right. So no. So I knew he's going to do an ad-lib. All right. So listen. When I've been travelling, I know this has been said on many different occasions. There's been times where it's by the pool, a campfire, late at night, over a cold beverage.
Is this American Pie?
No, it's not. It's real life. Where I've had amazing conversation, all right? Amazing conversation.
Don't tell me you had marshmallows over the stick.
No. We don't do marshmallows. Don't do marshmallows, all right? So I had amazing conversation.
Called s'mores or something.
No, we don't do s'mores. All right, I love marshmallows, but we don't do... Well, same thing, really. Yeah. Anyway, so... had amazing conversation to the point sometimes you think to yourself, actually this would be amazing with someone who I was actually with. The depth in which you're actually having a conversation. Linking back to Inception, at that very end, if you're looking at Leonardo DiCaprio and you're looking at his partner, I don't know who she was or what her name was.
Yeah.
All right, the depth to their love, I thought was I want to say incredible, all right? I don't know if you're not going to laugh, but it was incredible. And
I think it's more his love to her. Because I don't actually...
You don't get her perspective.
A little bit, but it's not as much as he's into her. Like,
no, because I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, certainly from the view that we got from the film anyway. So the point I'm making is, in order to get to that point of loving someone or get to that depth in loving someone, you've actually got to spend a lot of time with them. And I think us as men, I mean, at this moment in time, we've got a lot of things going on. All right, obviously, I know we're probably not going to share them on air, but we're constantly thinking about those things in particular, rather than spending time with our significant other, because we feel that is a hindrance or is going to prevent us from moving on, whether it's with our careers or the things that we want to go on and achieve. That's just pretty much my point, if I'm honest.
Yeah, sweet, man. Cool. Are we going to move on to the next chapter?
yeah, so chapter 6 in the book is about the man without fault. So the man without fault is number 3 or 5, who Dr. Bethany Marshall describes as the worst type of men. So the man without fault believes he is more important than everyone else. He cannot self-reflect and rarely takes responsibilities for his actions and feelings. And earlier on, when not Pete.
I was just going to say, you explained what the man without fault is like, but then, and I didn't want to actually cut you off.
That's fine.
But it's because I'm actually looking at it now.
Yeah.
It goes on to say how he became that way, and he says,
Break it down. Break it down.
when you begin to wonder how he came to be this way, you might discover that his caretakers were devaluing and critical. As a reaction to how small they made him feel, he defensively took flight into imagining that he was flawless and above reproach as an adult. Apparently. But again, this is another sweeping statement of how this person has become the man without, what is it?
Without fault.
Man without fault.
Yeah, because I know for a fact my missus would put me in this category all day long if she's read. I've told her, I've actually not banned her, but I've said don't read this book.
Actually, I see why she would say that.
Why?
So I think you look for excuses as to why. That's not. I'm just saying, not excuses. Excuses are very wrong. It's a very strong statement. I think you find reason as to why something. Actually, I want to use the word excuse actually, because there's reason and excuses. So I think you find maybe an excuse as to why something is like the way it is. Anyway, let me move on. Sounds very judgmental.
No, it's fine.
I felt like, whoa, I'm really being judgmental here. Let me move on quickly. Let me skip away.
I have no fault, so your opinion doesn't matter.
All right.
No, it's cool. Did you have any questions? Because I know you made quite a few notes on this chapter.
Yeah, I did. So, statement, and then from there, there's a part of the story. So, the man without fault, the inability to self-reflect underscores almost every personality style that leads to a deal breaker. And in almost every chapter, you will hear echoes of the same theme I just described. The capacity to self-reflect is important because healthy relationships are flexible, which I like to believe is true. A man without fault. I felt this was a good story. Sophia's story of becoming a successful professional and mother, balancing the two, because this is realistic in today's society of women now being breadwinners and it affecting men. But away from that, he having a business and it unfortunately declining after previous success. Men, not that women don't, have a lot of pressures away from being the breadwinner in the relationship which is another part. When that Jenga piece is removed and all things come clattering down, men can be fragile, and we can become fragile in an instant. And where his wife comes in is that where his wife comes in is that he just wants and needs a little bit of love. I'm not justifying his behaviour.
A little bit of love. He wanted sex every day. This is Sophia's story, right?
So I'm glad you touched on that because I forgot a little bit about it. So thank you. So obviously sex every day.
That's not a little bit of love.
No, but I'm sorry.
I think they had kids as well.
All right.
That's not easy.
No, I'm not justifying his behaviour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not. Anyway, so where his wife comes in is that he just wants he just needs it. No, I'm saying he needs a little bit of love. I'm not just saying justifying his behaviour, whether it be counterproductive in name calling, etc. I'm explaining it because there is no excuse for being whatless and not helping out around the house. That's it, really.
The man without fault, French. Any thoughts on the man without fault?
Not particularly, I'll be honest. I didn't take any notes. I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, so basically, the man without fault, he'll always, if any kind of, it might not even be criticism, it might just be like, what's the kind of positive way of saying criticism? There's a positive way of describing it. What's the term that people use? Constructive. Sorry.
Constructive.
Yeah, so it might just be constructive criticism, but the man without fault will always throw something back, and he'll essentially just say like, no, like, it's like this because of this, and it's not my fault. Yeah. So, yeah. I've got nothing else to really add on the man without fault, to be honest.
Okay.
P, do you want to take the helm?
Yeah, there was something else in the man without fault. I know we discussed this. I'm not too sure if my opinions have changed. I know there's definitely guys who I've seen. Anyway, let me start. Man without fault. We men, I'm not gonna say I wrote by and large, but I'm not too sure that is the case. But by and large, don't think about progress, the step-by-step process in a relationship. Some men think, I think she'll be a good mother to my kids, whereas with women, I'm sure there are several phases. But in order for men to move accordingly with these phases, our personal circumstances need to be in order. That's why it might feel like stepping on eggshells when discussing it, because life is not in order for this to happen. So A, I like to avoid this question, or B, what are you talking about? I thought you were going to say something, sorry. Things such as, why are you stressing me? Or isn't it the fact that I'm with you commitment enough? I'm telling you, sorry, where am I?
Are these your own notes? These from the book?
No, from the book.
Okay.
I'm a bit of both anyway.
Under what? The Man Without Fault?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it, really. I think I'll go rambling on a bit more.
So what are your thoughts on the Man Without Fault, P? Do you think, does this person exist? In Dr. Bethany Marshall's world, he does. Have you met this type of person? Have you been this type of person in a relationship?
I think there's elements that they obviously this man exists, but not for point. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. When I think of the man without fault, I'm thinking of someone who might be a little bit entitled in that behaviour than the person that's the only type of person I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. Or someone who's entitled, spoiled, can't get his own way.
Or it just might be someone who's been really successful in their career or something, and because of that kind of has gone to their head and created this
entitlement.
Yeah, exactly. They've kind of got this. Well, I'm such and such. Yeah. You have to obey what I say. Obviously, what I've done in my life is correct because look where I am and look where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of opinion. Mm-hmm. Do you want to lead, P?
I haven't got anything else on the man.
No, do you want to lead?
Oh, lead. Okay, cool. The Invisible Man. I think what I was going to say we can discuss already. I do. Obviously, we discussed. Obviously, the Invisible Man is constantly moving away from relationships rather than towards them.
So the Invisible Man is emotionally constricted and frequently shuts down in a context of intimate relationships. So this could, just going back to the book attached, this could be an avoidant possibly.
That's the one. That's what I was saying. I would, if there's any of them that I would kind of veer towards, it would be the Invisible Man to an extent. Mm-hmm. But again, because it's in such a boxed off manner, I can't totally agree with it because there's certain things and aspects, as I may have mentioned earlier. So for this part, he says, do you want to actually go into the Invisible Man now?
Oh, yeah. Gone.
Okay, so it says the Invisible Man may exercise excessively, spend long hours on the computer or reading, or overly involve himself in business or sports activities, which all sounds like me, to be honest with you. Excessive involvement in these activities may make him appear passionate, but they only are designed to avoid emotional entanglement, which I think is bullshit. It's nothing to... This is, again, I'm talking from personal point of view, but I don't like to read and go to exercise and do sports activities to avoid emotional entanglement.
I don't know if this is the same chapter, but it might kind of like encompass obviously both of it. I remember reading something very, very similar in that Bethany goes on to say he knows all about who the top goal scorers are, for example. He knows all the trading, what's going on, but like doesn't know X about me.
Yeah.
And obviously if that's the case, then that might be a little bit of a problem because that
sounds a little bit aloof, if that makes sense.
No, but it's just like I guess you're not concentrating on what you should be concentrating on, which is fair enough. But I think these things the things that I just mentioned in terms of whether they're on the computer regularly for whatever reason or reading or exercising excessively has got nothing to do with avoiding emotional entanglement. I don't agree with that at all. The invisible man avoids recognition of what others think and therefore may dress or act in a fashion that is embarrassing. His good shirts are the ones with the clean stains. What's that put here? I think this again is another generalization. Yeah. He may not care about what others think as it's only their own perspectives. And why would this be a problem?
Do you know what? To try and defend Dr. Bethany Marshall and her thought process here, we've got to remember that what she's saying is this is for the perspective of a woman who's maybe not looking for this type of guy. Maybe there isn't actually anything wrong with being this, in inverted commas, invisible man. The guy who likes to be on the computer, who's very business-minded, who might just, who's into his sports and stuff like that. He might be fine, but maybe what she's saying is he's not fine if he wants to be in a relationship. Does that make sense? Have I made sense by saying that? And there's one other thing. Whilst I'm speaking, there's one other thing as well. There's a story in this book, and I think it's Jean's story or something like that, where she's been married to this dude for 2 or 3 years. But what Jean's found is that she's drifting apart from her husband. What she's saying is that maybe they'll go for breakfast or whatever, but when they're at breakfast, he'll just have the independent up whilst he reads over his coffee and stuff like that, and she's like a penny for your thoughts. He really has nothing to say. But if you've... Why did I get into this? But if any of you, have spent a prolonged amount of time with a significant other, say like 6 days in a row, like non-stop, after a while, not to be rude or horrible, you're going to run out of stuff to talk about. Like, honest to God,
that space.
Exactly
what Hayley was saying about having that space,
independent, like having your own kind of life. So this doesn't give the context as to whether or not, because maybe this invisible man doesn't have a social life. He comes home, and maybe Jean's relying on this invisible man to be her like friend, confidant, everything,
her entertainment.
Exactly, and all of a sudden, because they're always in each other's pockets, actually, is nothing new, nothing refreshing, nothing new to talk about. He's going to pick up the independent, and then he maybe has nothing to say. Go flip in Marbella for 2 weeks, come back, and maybe you'll both have something to say.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? So that's the one criticism I would say about that. Maybe a bit more context would be required for the reader, and also maybe Dr. Bethany Marshall needs to stop creating these kind of scenarios which are beneficial to her book and to her and to her method of thought for the women who she's trying to help.
You say creating, I mean, she's saying these are real. So, but you're saying selective.
But see.
Good point. Maybe selective.
But see the points that some of the early points that she raised. Now, again, as a common theme throughout the book. But then she goes on to say why this person's like that. And in this regard, for the invisible man, she mentions, when you inquire about this man's childhood, you may discover that he was raised by a volatile, intrusive, or demanding mother. And when you meet his mother, you realise that you too would have tried to become invisible in order to cope with this overbearing woman. You should just surgery to have his mother removed from his back.
That's a bit strong. It's funny. I was actually about to defend her then. That was a bit strong.
Bruv,
when I mean defend her,
comical.
I was thinking to myself,
I just put wow. Like, when I read it, I did just put wow. Like, really, wow.
Because more often than not, obviously, sometimes people's past does reflect their personality today. That was a bit strong in terms of removing the mother or removing himself from the mother and stuff like that.
But I just think just the whole premise of this person's upbringing must have been this because now they're like that, and it's just that simplified. I think that's dangerous.
To simplify things, yes, because life is complex. I've got 1 or 2 more bits and pieces, I think it is. Okay, Tina's story. Tina brought her husband Tina brought her husband to therapy because her first marriage failed and wanted to ensure this one went well. Based on the story, I don't understand guys who don't voice or project how they feel. It feels like years of suppression. Guys who marry or stay with a girl because they think it's the right thing to do. My mother likes her, the kids love her. Maybe it's because of my experiences, but I don't understand how you can allow that type of life to start and then overcome you. I think this is so this guy, I think he himself might be involved in a marriage beforehand as well, and then his mother liked his wife or his wife to be, the kids did, and then he felt, why not get married? I think that's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what your thoughts are on that per se? It might be quite a simple close and shut case, really, but
Yeah, I wouldn't go about it myself like that, but each man for himself, I guess.
So you're saying he only married Tina because
Yeah, because of the...
Yeah.
his because the
I mean,
stepchildren-
primarily, yeah.
That makes no sense.
Well, certainly there were the points that were raised. I mean, because
But
the
people
kids...
do that, you know.
No.
People find themselves in situations where it's almost like the situation takes control of them. It can happen.
See, but I mean, again, I think we're all different, and as I said before, me and you've had a discussion about sometimes love doesn't necessarily take precedent in a relationship, and
I
raising.
think you and us.
Yeah, no, but we discussed. I know me and Oscar had a discussion, but obviously me and you've had the discussion as well, and. I don't know. Maybe I'm just repeating myself, but I can never get myself into a marriage, which is a huge union and huge commitment, if love isn't number one on that list.
But something, maybe it might be an agreement for whatever reason. You know, you've got like power couples, inverted brackets, or whatever, where they may have been together for X amount of time, and they're now a brand. And rather than break that brand up, they keep it going because it's bigger than just them individually.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So maybe love isn't the first thing that's going to be on the table anymore. Maybe that may have slid back a little bit, and now it's just a case of, all right, we're going to keep these four walls standing by whatever it is, by public appearances, or whatever it may be, just so they can maintain whether it's their lifestyle or that particular image.
So it's great because that kind of comes back to the question I mentioned earlier in regards to love, financial, and obviously sex as well. So I mean, obviously, if you found yourself in that situation in regards to the brand, I mean, would you stay with the person? I mean, you might have to be in that situation for you to then answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's hard because I'm not in a couple, a brand, so it'll be hard to say, okay, you know what I mean? Because what else is going to be affected? Determine whether I stay on or.
I think that's wrong.
But ultimately, I have to be happy.
Yeah,
that would be my ultimate decision maker. Happy or not? Yeah.
And yourself, Mason? I think you might have said.
yeah. I think that's completely wrong. If I understand what you're saying, in that you have to think, or you might think about what could be affected, what kind of what other situation or circumstances might arise if you were to separate or break away from that partner. But I'm with you in that, first and foremost, it's your happiness, boy. Because otherwise, like,
it just breaks down.
Yeah, exactly. You could break down in the situation you're in. But, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much me on Invisible Man. I think we discussed on. That's another one. I don't understand people who don't want to socialize with their partner's friends, like, at all. I mean, these are things that take place.
Why don't you understand it?
I'm not gonna lie. I've been like that.
Why don't you understand it, P?
Sorry, I'm not rephrasing it. Is make an effort to socialize. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important that you make an effort to.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit different. Yeah, you may not like him, but I think you need to make an effort to at least want to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And I don't even like to say pretend, but there might be some cases where
you're gonna have to pretend if you don't like him.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've been with a girl before, and I think I made her donuts. But you have to pretend to get along with them and be cordial, innit? Do you know what I mean?
Creams, Tesco's finest. And jam. Yeah, that's two different things, P. So you might, because I think one of them shows an effort towards your partner, and one of them's just there's nothing there, like, in common. Like, I don't want to hang out with him. What about the little boy that poses as a man? The little boy who poses as a man.
I don't have that, actually.
So the little boy poses as a man,
will not fully reciprocate or take complete responsibility for himself because he finds it easier to remain childlike and needy. Do you have any notes on this, French?
No. What part's this?
This is chapter 8 of the book.
Okay, no, I don't believe I do.
P?
So I've got something here. So
Yeah.
what should I do now? So it might have something to do with, I'm not too sure. It's got something to do with Julie's story. Well, I say Julie's story. Julie's in a relationship from hell with a paranoid, angry, manipulative, and possessive partner. Quotes from the passage: "Do you think he can change? All right, or is this just in his DNA?" And I think I went on to write: Charles liked to pick fights, and Charles found it deeply satisfying to be angry and out of control. In the passage, Charles pulled the handbrake on the M-way to have an argument. Like, what do you think you should be doing? To get out of a relationship, you pull the handbrake on the motorway. That's a relationship you need to get yourself out of, mate.
I think, yeah, tell a lie, I have found in Don's story, I've highlighted something that's come up. I'll give you a bit of background about Don. So Don was set up on a date by mutual friends at the last minute. His date cancelled with the thin excuse that she needed to take care of her sick mother. Because Don knew that his reluctant dinner companion worked at a local restaurant, he decided to go there for dinner and prove that she was lying and was really working. At the same time, he rationalised to himself that he was a reliable guy who would never have mistreated another human being by cancelling at the last minute. And most certainly, he would never have lied. Now, further on, his emotions fluctuated so wildly that he never considered that his date, and this is referring back to the initial part of his dinner companion, his emotions fluctuated so wildly that he never considered that his date might have decided to work because she needed the money, or that she might not have been able to get somebody to take over the shift, but was too embarrassed to tell him. Yeah, I mean, I first thought, why would she lie in the first place? But not to excuse his behaviour. But if these reasons were the case, her honesty would prevent his reaction. Furthermore, this may then cause another train of thought that she is lying.
She's lying. I mean, like...
It doesn't matter.
I was going to say something, but it doesn't matter.
I mean...
What do you think, Pierre?
I didn't think there was... No,
If someone, I don't know, just what? If someone just out of the blue says, have a nice life or great knowing you, what's your thoughts?
Ta-da! No, I guess you've got to keep it moving. It depends what happens, you know?
What was someone you was quite fond of? You might have met him in Spain.
Maybe, and maybe things have developed since then that I haven't discussed yet. Maybe things have developed. Maybe things have developed. You know, things have changed.
I don't know.
Maybe we've had conversations
Could have been
since
Iceland,
then.
but Spain sounds
No,
nice.
maybe we've had conversations since then. Maybe we're on good terms
I'm
now.
really listening out.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd add my 2 pence though. You know, I can't allow the things to be left out there.
I wasn't saying it was you, but
I know.
if you want to, please, if you want to play the part of this person I'm describing, please go ahead. Oh man. What else was there in the book to cover? I can't really recall.
There's just a couple of things. I don't know if it's really something that things I can close on. Getting off the merry-go-round. Draw a line in the sand. All right. So loss can be negotiated and reputations can be repaired, but life can never be relived. So make sure you are living it with the right person.
Where is that from?
I don't know. It said getting off the merry-go-round, so it might be something within a chapter. I'm not too sure. And then I added, that's why it's important to push boundaries as to the relationship, whether it's something like conversation, going on holiday together, or moving in with each other. In that way, you get to kind of explore, obviously, who the person is. And I don't know if making a deal. Has anyone got anything on that?
No, I think the rest of the book I didn't really make notes, and I just read it as like almost without my kind of without my
Questioning.
fully booked hat on, if that makes sense, where I'm kind of like picking the book apart and really trying to think of questions to ask both you guys and obviously the listeners.
I've got one question from that same section.
Which one's that?
Hold on, the one that you just mentioned.
Okay.
When he and only he is the prize, you will feel jealous, anxious, insecure, and unable to negotiate for your needs. In your unending attempt to make him happy, you will feel reluctant to bring up insecurities for problems for fair of being discarded. Or you will barrage him with your concerns, but feel unable to break away if the situation does not resolve. If, on the other hand, you are the prize, you will be able to call him without fear of being retaliated against or abandoned, because you are confident in your value. You will ask for what you need, because you will feel like a worthwhile investment. You will understand that the moment you ask him to appropriately accommodate your needs is the moment that you discover whether he truly loves you. And because your esteem comes from within, not from him, you are willing to take the risk. You understand that you are a loved individual, and this fact will not change, even if he does choose to leave the relationship. I think the question, in reference to being a prize, if both perceive themselves to be the prize, where does the compromise come into play?
I think if you want a successful relationship, there's got to be some form of compromise. So there's things you're going to differ on, whether it's not personality traits, but I think there's things that you're gonna need to compromise or certainly have discussion on.
But if you're as it mentions, you're the prize winner, like, and you're both the prize. Like, say you're a top model, she's a top model. Like, where's the compromise gonna come from?
Tell me this: if you're a prize,
that's just the most basic.
That's fine. I fully get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you're a prize, just say you by yourself are a prize. Then you feel like you almost should be chased, sought after, like you're someone's, you are someone's reward, so they need to come and get you, right? So if you both feel like that, then I think it should be a chase for both of you, if that makes sense. So it should be like, say for instance, I think, how can I put it? I might book you the best, it doesn't matter about cost, but I might book you the most romantic or best restaurant, or take you to the most romantic hilltop in the whole of the south of England, and that should show, okay, you think of me as the highest of the highest because you're willing to put out all the stops. You should then, I think, you would kind of expect that to be reciprocated. Next date, maybe you take me somewhere, and because I'm a prize and because I'm also a prize, it wouldn't be enough for the best for me. Does that make sense?
Lower the standard.
Exactly. So if you're both thinking you're prize, I think there still has to be effort on both parts. But the way you make that effort is to go above and beyond, if that makes sense. Not your average.
Yeah, no, I agree.
One of the things I would say I want to talk about is in chapter 14, which I think is the last chapter. It's the name of the chapter is Shopping List for a Healthy Man, and within that there's some interesting things that are put in here. So I'm going to just read a paragraph from the book. Soon after meeting him, you should discover that he has appropriately achieved in at least one area of his life. For instance, if he went to college, he now has a good job or a decent car. If he inherited his parents' business, so it's different. This is a different kind of class from where I'm from. If he inherited his parents' business, he has learned how to successfully manage it. Or if he's a member of a baseball team, he has learned to become a team player. His efforts continue to generate new opportunities, new skills, new challenges, or new possessions. Thus, he is progressing and not degenerating. These kind of tips that Dr. Bethany Marshall is throwing out.
What year was this book wrote? That's what I don't know. I was going to say this when Hayley was here. So Hayley, let me get a look at that. What year was this book wrote?
If these are the tips Dr. Bethany Marshall, no wonder she got so many patients, because she's
making them ill, boy.
She's throwing people out there into the world with this is their Bible, and they're coming back like, yo. He's not answering my questions.
He blocked my number.
Do you know what though? Like, towards the end of this book, she actually, I don't know if I should leave this to review, but she does actually
say some good things.
Give out some good advice.
Yeah.
Like, for one being, every solution begins with a dialogue. Talk to him about your needs and feelings and encourage him to express himself to you. Another one being, the problem may be clear to you, but not to him. Be flexible and take into account his personality and his differences. Keep in mind his personality type and use it as a guide. And another one is, do not grind, do not obsess, do not repeat the same thing over and over again. If he tells you that he has heard you, trust him. Fixating on the explanations will alienate him and cause him to withdraw. which I thought, okay, that's actually reasonable.
Why does she leave this right to the end of the book?
Literally,
I know. I think there's
literally,
another
all
one
the
here as
gems
well.
are
Yeah.
at the very
gems
end
them.
of the book.
It's not even that they're gems. It's just a reasonable way of thinking that actually you as a woman might not always be right, or your method of thinking, or your way of thinking, or even the advice she's given. Because she could easily have slotted that into earlier chapters.
Bro, I mean,
Where it was suitable.
I say it, because I've written up my book review, but yeah, it's literally something that I mentioned, man.
I think maybe just touching on some of the things that French just read. In Making a Deal, I'm not too sure that's the same chapter. A relationship is like a garden. It either grows or it withers, and if it is not tended to, it doesn't thrive. Once it withers past a certain point, no amount of water or sunshine can revive it.
Glad you're a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah, you gotta be.
That was a joke.
Yeah, no.
Alright, should we wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up because, yeah.
And we'll do the book review next time.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you for joining us. Fully booked. That's full_E_booked. You've listened to season 6. Look out for the book reviews. Season 6 is Deal Breakers by Dr. Bethany Marshall. And you were joined for part of season 6 by Hayley Quinn, who is a relationship expert. And we recommend checking her out. She's done a lot of good things. Mace.
Yeah, out.
Tell me where to go.